So I found it really, I found it to be really awesome. I have not liked all the discussion boards, but it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay,
I
thank you.
will
Because I graduated from liberal art college, already discussed a lot.
I
Mhm.
will say though, like given where our school is located, there's a lot of like community health programs or like facilities that focus on community health. So if you are gonna go into a more STEM focused major, or is that what they call it in grad school now? But like yeah, you can do like a more STEM focused type of education, but then maybe like your practicum or internship, you can kind of focus it on community health as well. And so I feel like doing the internships kind of gives you a new perspective that you can't really learn in a classroom setting.
And I think too, if to say like you do that, this one of the STEM concentrations, what I found with BU is I feel like you should still have the flexibility to take courses in the other areas that you might be interested in, the community health program, for example.
Yeah, because I'm in the Epi Biostats program, so that's the STEM program, and yeah, I would say there is a decent amount of flexibility with the courses you can take. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
You can just unmute and ask if you'd like. Those that have questions.
I didn't know how how we're supposed to do this. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about living in Boston, because that's really like one of my biggest fears right now. I live in rural Maine, and I'm a parent. I'm gonna have to move my whole family to Boston, and it's like a really overwhelming thing. I got into BU, Tufts, and Harvard, and I knew the whole point was to go to Boston intentionally, but like, yeah, it's not even just the cost of housing. It seems like just finding any available housing seems to be really problematic, and I am not in a position to like share a studio apartment with 3 other students. So yeah, I was just curious if any of you could like talk about your experience of like what housing has been like in the treacherous market of Boston.
So I will say Boston housing is quite something, first of all. But so I would say the most popular move-in times are June and September, since Boston is a very school-focused city.
Yeah.
And so depending on when you want to move in, I would say start your search maybe a few months earlier. And I don't know. I feel like personally it's a bit tough getting to the school from public transportation because it requires a lot of transfers and stuff. And
Mhm.
so what I did was I chose a place that's close to like a BU shuttle stop because BU has shuttles that can take you to the med school center or the campus. And so if you can find that route and maybe find an area where you might be interested in, that might be helpful.
Okay. Do you find like most people live pretty close to campus, like in Boston or South Boston, or people live like outside of the city?
I think it depends. I have friends that live like up in Revere. I have like one of my friends moved down to Rhode Island in her second year, but and then just like commuted in every day. Whereas a lot of other people live like right off campus in South End or just in other little like boroughs of Boston, more or less. I think the biggest pain when it comes to like the Boston housing is the fact that it's like you will have like a $12,000 down payment depending on like how much your rent is, because there's like first month's, last month's security deposit, and then kind of the only way to find a house or apartment in Boston is using a broker, which then means a fourth broker's fee, which are all a month of rent. So you kind of have to pay 4 months rent up front. And like, well, yes, that means you don't have to pay last month's and first month's rent. Like when the time comes, it's still like 4 months rent right up front, which is hard. Like it's a pain.
Yeah, we don't do that in Maine, so.
Yeah, and
Also,
because
what
my
where I no, sorry.
but my aunt and uncle live up in Kittery, and so whenever I was like moving up here for the first time, they were like, and I was telling them, I was like, how did you guys do this? And they're like, we didn't have to pay that much, like, friend, this is ridiculous.
I know I'm like looking at
But
like Lowell or something, but
I'd say
I don't
if
know
you have
how
a
anybody
car, it's and you want to bring your car down to Boston, it's possible to be able to live in some place like Lowell. Looking in Somerville is a decent place for more affordable housing. Um, there's, especially if you have a car, honestly, sometimes it can be faster to live outside the city than inside the city without a car. It's like I live like in Coolidge Corner, and it can take me anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes to get to campus, depending on just how the T's line up. Whereas like my friend that lives in Revere drives in 30, 45 minutes, and they live like 2 cities away. So it's just, I'd look into that if you want stuff that's affordable with more space, given like your family. Probably looking outside the city and driving in would be wise. But yeah, it's just expensive. It's the main pain.
Yeah, so what I've done is I've joined a bunch of Facebook groups for like Boston housing. So if there's like an area that you're interested in, you can just like type in that area and like housing. And yeah, I've joined a bunch of Facebook groups. And that's actually how I was able to avoid the broker's fee. So
Oh,
Okay.
that's smart.
That's really smart.
Do that.
Yeah, I saw
and
like I think
broker's
next
fee is a
week or
pain.
something. BU is like sponsoring like a housing thing with like real estate brokers to like explain how to find housing for admitted students. It just seems so overwhelming.
I think like one thing maybe that the campus has going for it is that since it is kind of like in, like you said, like the South End, South Boston area, like it would allow you, say you lived in, I don't really know the geography here, but like cities, are there any towns like Rosendale or something, towns almost like you south of Boston, that allow you to almost like dip in, dip out. And there's like, I think there's like one, I think the Red Line, like there would be a train that through Dorchester and stuff like that, that I think, would hopefully be, less expensive for rent and stuff like that, and then also more kind of like family style housing, I guess. Kind of those southern, I don't know if those are suburbs or what, but kind of dip in, dip out.
Thank you.
No problem.
Of course.
Anyone else have any questions and such?
you can type your question if you're shy.
That too.
I guess just like maybe hearing your experiences about interacting with the professors, with career services. Do you feel like that's not you've been connected to? I know they talked about this kind of in the main questions, but maybe getting a little bit more in depth about just getting connected to opportunities and that kind of thing.
I think
The opportunities as in like career wise.
Yeah.
Sorry, I like cut you off.
no, I didn't really have anything going. I think for me, I got super lucky, just kind of like right as soon as like I got to BU, I feel like I kind of like got on like a research team type thing, and so through that, I've been able to kind of get connected to different sort of opportunities and stuff like that. And so I think that that's pretty, opportunities like that that'll kind of lead to the next thing are pretty common at BU itself, and then kind of in Boston, like whatever you whatever sort of area of public health you're interested in. There's just so many like companies, whether you want to work at a big company, a startup, a nonprofit, like that Boston, like it'll have that, and so it'll kind of lead to the next thing. And I think it seems like the career center, like they've been like they've been decently helpful for me, I have to say. And I feel like it's one of those things where like their network isn't just Boston. It's like if you want to, after graduation, if you want to go somewhere else, that's definitely like Boston would kind of, or BU would give you kind of the tools to help you go do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, honest ditto. Like I found tons of my stuff through my lab, and then professors are just always willing to form little tiny connections for anything. I feel like it's I might be biased given my fanboy status of Dean Galea, but I think one of the big things that he's done under his tenure as dean is really trying to make sure that like the professors that he hires care. Um, and I feel like aside from maybe one or two, um, I feel like every single professor I've had has really cared and really invest themselves in their students if their students are also willing to reach out. I think one of the misconceptions that some people can have when going into graduate school is that like these connections will just be spoon fed to you. And that's just not the case. You have to take initiative, you have to be able to make effort, and you have to cold email sometimes. Um, and so, I wouldn't expect just these network of connections to just fall on your lap and you not have to do anything for it. You will have to put in effort, but the professors they make that effort much more worthwhile and they make it a whole lot easier to expand your network. So I found them to be very helpful.
Honestly, I had to learn that the hard way. I was like, because like the entire first semester, I was like focused on trying to settle in with school, and so like starting from second semester is when I really had to start like forging those connections. And I will speak as someone who did not join a research lab because it sounds like the other two did.
I love research.
Yeah, I did not do research. So I was on Handshake a lot. And so if you just go on Handshake, you look for internships or practicums, there will be a whole bunch of opportunities just there. And so you just have to apply. And honestly, there's a lot. So
There's too many.
I always say if I can get a practicum, like pretty much anyone can.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was cool, like I don't know if either of you guys did this ever, but like when they're like when the new like hiring cycle for like professors and stuff happens, they like invite students to come and like have lunch with them. And like I go for like the free lunch, but it's also like cool to like get to know like, I feel like they do actually kind of care about our input and what they have to say. And like we really get to kind of like have sort of conversation, like see like, you know, who this person is as like a person and then what kind of drives them as, researcher and professor and stuff like that. And so I feel like we can have like a very active role in kind of shaping that faculty, which makes it, like Dylan says, it's very kind of, for the most part, very like accessible and stuff like that. It is pretty cool.
I never participated in those, but I always thought that that was a cool process because at least like I think it's different since we're grad students compared, but like in undergrad, I was like, that wasn't a thing. They just hired people, and I was like, who's this? But here, and I think one of the other schools was mentioning it as well, is that like their students are involved in like the hiring process, and it might not be like a big input,
Yeah.
but it's still a little input, and that little input goes a long way sometimes.
I don't know if it's like the PTSD from undergrad talking, but I was pretty surprised whenever I would email a professor and they would get back to me pretty quickly. I'm just like, what does this need?
I feel like I have the opposite problem sometimes. It just like depends on the professor, where it's like they're either like a within the hour reply, or in like Dean Galea's case, like within like the second that you send it, it's ridiculous. Or my professors will take like 2 weeks, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see this." It's like, "Bang." But
Yeah.
sometimes they're just bad with emails, but they're still accessible human beings.
No, honestly, I feel like because I heard I forget what school it was, but they said that they got like assigned 3 different like advisors for different things or something like that. Like I know for me at least, like I got assigned like an advisor. I don't think I've never met with her, but so it's like very like, but like so like it seems like much more. What can you go out? You have to like you cold emails, things like that. They do want to help you. They are there for your like these professors and stuff like that. They're there for your kind of success and stuff like that. You just you have to go out there and kind of make those connections on your own, which is like was challenging for me at first, for sure. Still is.
What are factors you wish you would have thought about when choosing school that you didn't consider at the time? I think for me, strangely, I wish that we had a thesis. Mostly because I am very research oriented and I'm looking into further schooling and research. And one of the things that a lot of like the PhD programs look into are like, what was your thesis on? And I'm like, oh, we're like the only MPH program that doesn't have a thesis. So if you don't like research or don't want to write a thesis because they're a pain, then like, you know, BU's great in that there's no thesis if you don't want to write one. But I do think that like I've had to make a lot of my research opportunities happen for myself. And so it might have been nice to go to a school that was like a little bit more research focused than BU. I just think that there's lots of opportunities at BU, but like their main focus isn't necessarily like making you become the best researcher as it is like making you become like the best public health professional, which I think is also probably more important for public health because I think a lot of it is full of people that just want to do research and never actually interact with the communities that they say that they want to help. And BU doesn't really make people into those kind of people, which I like.
I will say though, as an epi biostats major, we don't necessarily have a thesis, but our ILE, which is short for integrated learning experience, which is something you have to do to graduate. So we can pick a data set that we want to work with and just kind of analyze that and write a paper on that, which kind of feels like a thesis. So I mean, there's that. Yeah, so
maybe I should have done
thesis
EpiBio. That's what I've been learning in my time here.
So yeah, I do think that kind of opportunity is still there. So
I feel like for me, like I wish I had done more of like what y'all are doing now of like actually talking to students and stuff like that and kind of seeing what things are actually like, you know, the good and the bad of all the different schools. Cause I feel like, I don't know if any of y'all have kind of had this experience, but when I was like going through this process, like it was just kind of hard to tell the different schools, like what was unique about the different ones. And, you know, like, oh, Boston, oh, they can say they have so many opportunities, but like DC does, like Atlanta obviously does. Like, so it's like, that was a little bit kind of, it was just kind of like, you know, close your eyes and, you know, pick one type thing.
I agree.
After a certain point. So I feel like what y'all are, one thing that was helpful for me, if y'all are able, it's kind of different now because I was doing it during like COVID and stuff, so I was able to do it virtually, but like sitting in on a class, like things like that, just kind of like, just, I don't know, get the vibe, get the vibe of the school, if you will. Just kind of, you know, which is what y'all are doing right now. So.
no, yeah, definitely. I talked to some faculty from other schools too in order to help make my decision, but I do feel like that is also different from talking to students who are actually attending the school because that's like a whole different perspective. So, yeah.
I agree.
And yeah, I did
did completely blind.
I came straight from undergrad too, so I was like, what is grad school? I don't know.
I have to leave, but I'm gonna put my email in the chat box if you do have any more questions. I hope it's been helpful for you guys.
Me as well.
Thank you.
I
No
get
problem.
too many
Thank you.
emails, so I will put my LinkedIn.
Also, I'm gonna do. It's not a shameless plug because I don't post anything. But if you want to follow my Twitter, which is how I'm significantly more accessible and how I got contacted for this, and feel free to follow me on that. You can see a random kid be a nerd. Just
It's a good name.
Yeah.
I it's just like really cool because I feel like we talk about Dingley a lot, but it's like there's like a certain like hunger to be because it's sort of like a newer program compared to a lot of the other ones, and it's very like up and coming, if you will. Like I don't know if you like the rankings and stuff, like they now go from like 8 to 6 to things like that, where it's one of those kind of, yeah, it's like
I agree.
unproven with a desire, with that kind of that hunger. You know?
I agree. The hunger is there, and I will solely credit my king, Dean Galea.
I'm surprised your Twitter isn't like Galea fan.
I thought about it. I like he used to be a frequent tweeter, and I was like the only person who would like his tweets. It's great. I've got his books up here.
Right
It's Nope.
Is it this book?
No,
Is that
no,
my-
I got that one I have that one as well.
Oh,
So I've got the Me versus Us, which
Yeah.
if you haven't read this, BU professor, impeccable intro to what is public health. And then we've got, this one's not a BU professor, but it's called Being Mortal. A lot of my med school friends all recommended this because we started a book club. But then I've got my two Sandra books. We got Well and The Contagion next time. I think I'm just exposing myself for being
and
a Sandra
I have my two also.
Hey, let's go. Yeah, we love Sandro. He does like student coffee chats. Because and then I had like I feel like I don't know if I'm technically allowed to say this, but I had like a cocktail party at Sandro's house with him once. For like a student leadership appreciation. He like fed us all like a really nice dinner. And then we had like wine with our dean, which I think goes to show just like I feel like he's very invested in his students. So I don't know, I like it a lot, and I think that leadership shows. I think in ways that it's not necessarily prevalent at other schools. So yeah.
Thank y'all, everyone. Good luck with your, the next couple of months, and kind of it's stressful too, but it's exciting. I hope so. Good luck to everyone.
Bye.
I'll stick around for a few more minutes in case anyone has anything, but other than that, I'll head out here in a bit.
I don't really think there's anything.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one left here. So, well, thank you for answering my questions.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I hope you were able to learn stuff while you're here.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, really insightful. So.
Well, if you don't have any last minute questions, I'm gonna go make dinner. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.